Hello and welcome. We're going to be talking about, we haven't done these shows for a while, but I've decided to do one on Mulholland Drive because it's one of my favourite of David Lynch's theatrical films. I love everything he does, but this one stands out. And so we're going to be having a bit of a deep dive into that and talking about sort of briefly covering how it got started and then going into our theories, theories, thoughts on the narrative, the dream kind of like quality to it, standout moments and things like that. So anyway, before I do that though, I want to welcome my guest here who's joining me today to talk about it. Is my lovely friend Jen. How are you?
I'm good, thanks, Frank. How are you?
I'm doing very well.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. It's really nice to see you. It's really nice to have you here. So Jen, Mulholland Drive. Okay. First of all, Mulholland Drive won the Cannes Film Award, and I think Lynch got Best Director. Then more recently, I think it was about 2016 or something, the BBC did a poll or something. It was quite a prestigious thing about the best films of the noughties up to that point. So for the first 15 or 16 years, and Mulholland Drive came first.
Yes.
Which I was quite amazed by, actually. Even though I love it, I was quite shocked by that choice. It seemed a bit left field, if you know what I mean, for them. But
it's so unique, though, as a film. It's a work of art in its own right, and I think that attracts a certain amount of attention and acclaim.
Yeah,
I certainly agree. I think it's one of the best.
Wow, it's great. Yeah, and I know your other favourite is The Elephant Man.
Of Lynch's work, yes, yeah.
So anyway, let's go for it, Jen. I'm just going to give you a little potted history. I won't go too much into it because most people who watch this kind of know the ins and outs of Lynch's work more than I do, probably. But for those who may not, Mulholland Drive was originally made as a pilot TV movie for a potential series. Lynch wanted to actually do a series of it. I think a 13 episode season or something. So he made the pilot, so all that material was kept, pitched it to ABC, who ABC were responsible for Twin Peaks as well back in the day. So he went to them. They didn't really like the pilot, so it kind of got shelved for a little while. Part of it was done, about 90%, I guess 90% of it was filmed. So Lynch sat on it for a little while. He went off and done some other things, like The Straight Story, I think, came next and things like that, and went back to it. So he shot all that around 98, maybe 99. Then one thing and another, and then he went back and he wanted to finish it. So he decided all right, let's make it into a theatrical release. But I got to shoot some additional footage. So there was brand new stuff added as well. I think it's quite seamless. I don't think you can really tell, but they had to reshoot like a year or 18 months later and do more. So eventually they got it done and it came out in 2001. So from its inception, it took about 3 years. So one of his longest films, apart from Eraserhead, which took him 5 years to make, his first film. So quite a while, but he kept running out of money back then, So he was only a young director then, didn't have a lot of money to make a movie, So anyway, that's how it happened. And the other little tidbit is that Audrey Horne from Twin Peaks, played by Sherilyn Fenn, was mooted at one point to be the lead in Mulholland Drive. So it's going to be a bit like Audrey Horne goes to Hollywood, and seeks her fortune there, leaves Twin Peaks, the idyllic little place, to this huge city, and it was going to like follow what would happen there, But it didn't happen. I don't know the reasons behind it, but it didn't. So that's where we are. So, Jen, where do you want to go with this now? I've pretty much given as much background as I can, but the film, yeah.
Oh, well, I think it's really an interesting background, and I would be really curious to know how it would have played out differently had it materialized as a series. Obviously, the first chunk of the film is the bit that we know to have a lot of kind of paranoia, sinister energy. There's that sort of that sense of building suspense and what's happened, mystery and intrigue, and psychology and all of that, and then there's a very abrupt turn in the film, and I wonder if it had been a series, would we have still had that abrupt turn? Would the mystery have been the main trajectory? And I don't know the answer to that, and I don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know if you has Lynch ever revealed his
I,
master
I
plan.
think there was I think there was a book on it about his work. Well, it was a book that was made, kind of a filmmaker book that was made around the time that he was shooting that film, and he gives some insight into the process of it. But I can't remember the details. It's so long since I've read it. It was called Lynch on Lynch.
Oh, right.
And I think it came with one of the limited edition DVDs. It actually came with it, I think, with the DVD of it, of Mulholland Drive, but I don't have that anymore. Not that one anyway. So I can't remember the details, but I think he was talking quite extensively about it. But then again, Lynch never gives much away. He wants people to make their own mind up. So he hates talking about the filmmaking process anyway. So you can't really get a lot out of him, really, most of the time.
Sure. Well, and rightly so, because I guess it's one of those things, it's like magic, isn't it? It's the illusion is so intriguing and so magnificent, and then once you know the secret, suddenly it's all a little bit disappointing.
It's not the same anymore. You're going to view it completely differently, aren't you?
Yeah, exactly. And I think what Lynch does really effectively with the theatrical version of Mulholland Drive, the version that we know, is he plays the "it was all a dream" narrative, the trope, that we all hate, because it's so overused. But at the same time, he does it so effectively that it's like, and it draws you in rather than repels you. It's like an earned. The twist is an earned twist. It's set up well. It's a rewarding twist, as opposed to let's just pull the rug out from under your feet at the last minute, which other storytellers maybe have used and not done it quite as effectively. So it's great. I kind of like not knowing what his intentions were about it, because in his usual way, he invites us as an audience to imprint upon it our own interpretation, and he gives us space to do that. And I think that's probably what makes Mulholland Drive such a compelling piece of work, and earning top spot on lists like the one you mentioned, because we watch it over and over and over again, and we only do that because it's so open to interpretation, but yet it's so grounded. It's not so open to interpretation that it feels like it's just been made up on the spot. It feels like every little piece has its place in the puzzle, and it's how you put that puzzle together that becomes so interesting.
Yeah, it is. That's what the wonderful thing about his films. They do draw you in straight away, don't they? And he's got a visual style that's very captivating, and they do require repeat viewing. If you get into it the first time, you're very likely to go back and rewatch it. Other people won't get it the first time and think this is too way out there. I can't stand this kind of stuff. Or you just become so, enraptured by it that you carry on, viewing, or then going back and watching his other films as well, stuff like that.
Yeah, and it feels like it's something else. I think all the way through, there's this kind of sense of foreboding, even in the moments where Naomi Watts' character is stepping off the plane and confronted with Hollywood and the gates to Paramount Studios, and aren't they? Isn't it all so wonderful and exciting and starstruck? But even in those moments, because the performances are so heightened and stylized, there's that sense of underpinning dread, like what's happening here? What's at work? And oh my God, I've just talked myself out of remembering what my original point was. Oh, this is embarrassing. I can't remember what my...
You were, what was it? You were saying...
what did you say to prompt me?
Yeah, it was the first thing that when she steps out, you said it's kind of like, it seemed.
Oh, yes. So even if it's
unsettling, even at that point, when it's meant to be really like bright, shiny day and nice.
Yes, I've remembered my point. So even if as an audience member, you are compelled by the mystery and the kind of that ominous dread that sits in it, And then you get the flip. But actually, because I think what Lynch does very, very effectively, and this is why I'm curious about what the series would have been like, he plants the clues. And I don't know if this was done in the original shoot or whether or not it's been, there's been splices cut in or what, I really don't know. But he plants dreamlike surrealty all the way through the opening. So, you've got those elongated palm trees, the kind of misty Rodeo Drive kind of atmosphere. And it feels very dreamlike, smudged lights and things like that. So when the flip does happen, he's planted enough clues to actually tell us this is not a general kind of mystery film. This is a journey into the subconscious. It's not just it was all a dream. It's a layered exploration of self.
Yeah. And
self on the surface and self internally as well, and the subconscious and unconscious elements of it as well. And he's laying the groundwork for that all the way through. So when the flip happens, there is that moment of, oh, okay, I'm never going to find out what the conspiracy is. I'm never going to find out who the cowboy is and what's his interest, and whose pocket is he in, or is he the one pulling the strings? After that flip, you actually stop caring about that. So I can really see how audiences who wouldn't naturally be drawn to Lynch's films would be compelled by it anyway.
Mm.
Sorry, that was me waffling on.
All good points, though. Yeah. I was fascinated with, I don't know, to me, it's what's interesting about the casting of it, for instance. I believe it was Naomi Watts' first major picture.
Mm.
So that kind of made her famous, really, I suppose. That's kind of intriguing. And she's been indebted to David ever since. She always speaks highly of him. He gave me my break and all that, she can't say enough nice things. But, I mean, it ain't a bad directional film to be in, when you think about it. Your first movie.
It's iconic. It's an iconic piece of work, and her performance in it is iconic as well.
I was just thinking, would she have had the same career if she'd her first film was King Kong?
I don't think so, because I don't think her performance in King Kong was, I mean, obviously she was very good in it, but I don't think it was an iconic.
No.
That was a character already made iconic by other actresses, whereas this was an original piece of material.
It was just when it started the way it did. She didn't just go straight to that one rather than Mulholland Drive, Yeah. And you've got some great performances in it. I think Justin Theroux is really good.
Yeah.
Theroux, yeah. I like it. Adam Kesher, his name is, isn't it? Yeah, I think he's really good. There's some light moments in it. It's just, there's a bit of comedic things that go on, especially with like the argument with his girlfriend or his wife or whatever, things like that are funny. And
but it's absurdly funny. The things that are funny in it, it's a level of absurdity that is it's bonkers, isn't it? Like the way she attacks the mob guy that comes in, and the way the assassin, when the assassin shoots those people in the office block. It's just like a comedy of errors. It's absolutely hysterical.
I can say it borders on absurdity.
Yeah, but it's so funny. It's the way he's like, oh man, like not again. It's, and there's a vacuum cleaner or something.
Wrong, didn't it?
Yeah, exactly. It's just so absurd. But again, it elevates it out of. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry, I just get carried. I do like that scene. I just think he's the most hapless assassin I've ever known.
But then when we see him in the second part, he seems very efficient. There's that weird laughter that he demonstrates in the meeting in Winkies with Diane, but he's not the sort of chaotic character that he is shown to be.
No.
In the previous scenes, which that level of absurdity just elevates it.
The characters as well, the same people, but they're different. If you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Pop up in both narratives, but there's difference. There's a flip in every kind of their nature and everything. good hitman, bad hitman's the same guy, but
Mm.
you know, which I like. I thought the. Do you want? How do you like? You want to get into the theory of the real nuts and bolts of it? What your theory of this film is?
Ooh.
What do you think it's?
I can talk about my I talk about my interpretation, and I'll caveat it by saying that I really have no idea, because it's not explicit, is it? It's and my interpretation is not going to necessarily mirror other people's interpretations.
Yeah.
But I think it's a film about well, there's the obvious bit, which is the dispelling of the myth of the Hollywood dream, which we were talking about before we started. And you know, there's a very clear storyline, you know, both in the dream sequence and in the reality sequence about Hollywood and the culture of Hollywood and the corruption of Hollywood and the disparity in opportunities within the sort of that within that world, and that's really clear, and so that's an obvious one. I think less obviously, but of equal importance, is it's a journey of self. It's about, who are we? Are we who we want to be? Are we who we think we are? Are we the terrifying faceless monster that lurks in the corner and holds our guilt? And it's about the guilt. You know, what does our guilt have over us, and the how destructive is guilt? So I think there's a lot of elements that are less so about a story and more so about an internal journey that the Naomi Watts character is undergoing, that ultimately leads her to be consumed by her guilt and consumed by her sense of failure, her lost dreams, and is ultimately destroyed by her dreams, because it's the jitterbug contest judges that ultimately lead to her demise at the end, isn't it? So
yes,
so I think that's really interesting to me, both as a film enthusiast and as a writer as well. So I find that really compelling, and that's the thing that keeps me going back to it, and I'll watch it over and over again, because every single time I watch it I can glean something new that contributes towards that side of the story message. You know, who are we? Who am I? Who is she? You know. Well, how about you, Frank? What do you think?
Well, I think I think there's a lot of people that have a similar theory to what I do. I don't think my one's it's like any more out there, but well, it's not out there, but it seems to be the popular one, is that the film is a flipped narrative. So what's happening at the beginning is basically the end of the film. So when she's sinking into the pit, the first thing you kind of see is someone sinking into a pillow. And that it seems to me that's the moment where she's killing herself or letting go or whatever, you know, or sinking into some
that's
kind
really
of insanity.
Interesting. That's really interesting, Frank.
Killing herself at that moment, because there was another bit near the end where you actually see her put the gun to her ear, and smoke goes up.
I always thought that was her going to sleep before the dream.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, you could be right. That could be like her going to sleep, and then the rest of it is this dream that she's having. That's a good point. Yeah, that'd probably be more likely, because she sinks slowly in it. It's not as if she killed herself, because she would have gone, straight down. But it's sort of someone sinking slowly into a pillow. So, and then it starts, doesn't it? You know, and then we start seeing this idyllic life that she wants. Won't that be the day? Oh, gee whiz, and all that. She's all like that when she comes out. You know, it's all very sort of 50s kind of Hollywood talk. You know, unusual way of speaking. You know, it's out of time. You know, I thought it was, she did that really well too. So even that couple that you were saying about later on, even in that beginning bit, there's something not quite right about those two.
Oh yeah, they
You
the
can see
grinning.
something, even at that point, there's something, it's not quite, and then they showed him in the car and it's like slowed down, slow motion. She's looking at him smiling and tapping his knee. Like, it's just something not quite right.
Yeah, the smiles are really stylized, aren't they? They're really they're sinister. It's sinister in that moment. So it's this lovely, as you say, this idyllic image of them escorting her into Hollywood, into this LA dream life, and yet their presence is a reminder. All the way through, their presence is felt. That kind of that grin, those slightly wicked, sinister grins. So, yeah.
And particularly at the end when they're miniaturized, that was really quite creepy, wasn't it?
Yeah.
They were little tiny, it was really strange, that was. And they're chasing her around, and
and of course they come out of the blue box, don't they? The blue box. So you've got this blue key throughout the whole thing. We don't know what it is. I think we can glean that it is a key to unlocking the secret. It unlocks a secret, and the secret is her guilt. It's obviously found with the money, which is the blood money. And so it unlocks the box of secrets, I guess. And out of it is where her guilt is in there, and out of it comes the miniaturized versions of the two people who paved the way for her to go into acting. And they're terrifying. They're absolutely terrifying. It's the speed of their motion as well.
They're sort of moving around like sort of like stop motion almost, it's really yeah. So there are a couple of moments like that there are several, I suppose, that are very unsettling actually. There's one in particular, I'm sure you remember it, Jen, very well, of the someone behind Winky's scene.
Frank, let me tell you something. I think that scene, those two characters in Winky's talking about the dream and going around and finding what's behind the wall, I think that is the most important scene in the film. I think that is the scene which defines what the film is.
Oh, wow. Yeah. You do, really?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do. I really, really do. I mean, you were going to say something about it, but I'll maybe share my thoughts on it in a second.
No, it was really just I was going to ask you what you thought of that scene, because I was just getting back to the fact that there's certain scenes that stand out, and that one is shown an awful lot, that scene, particularly. People remember that one. It was so brief. I mean, the reveal was very brief.
Yeah.
The build-up was amazing. It was the foreboding was so intense as he's making his way down. The camera's kind of tracking it, slowly, cutting back to the wall, looking at him, getting closer to the wall, and wow, that big, And I think a lot of people probably jumped out of their skin at that point,
Yeah, absolutely. But it's one of the few films.
It realised that they thought that was a man. It wasn't. It was actually an actress.
Right.
That played that actor called Bonnie Aarons.
Oh, right. Okay.
And went on to play the nun in the film called The Nun, which is a sequel to The Conjuring.
Yeah.
So that's Bonnie. That's the lady that played the bum, as she was called, the bum at Winky's.
Okay.
Like
I
down
didn't
and
realise
out.
that.
Yeah. So for quite a while, I didn't even realise that until quite a few years afterwards, and then I found her on Facebook, and she was the very woman that played the character. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Very heavily made up, but
yeah. But there's a beauty.
She's got sort of piercing eyes. She's got amazing piercing eyes.
And that's interesting about that character, because in as much as there's something very, very unusual about the face and the way the face makeup's been done, there's an incredible beauty underneath it, the lips, the eyes, and I find that really interesting. So it doesn't surprise, I didn't know that, but it doesn't surprise me to hear that actually that character is played by a woman.
Yeah. So that was an interesting little thing there. And it became kind of iconic. And even though it's funny with Lynch's films, a lot of times these very, very minor characters, if you like, when I say that, I don't mean they're not important, but they They take on a life of their own. People constantly, often talk more about the smaller characters that he has in his films that only maybe get one or two lines, but for some reason have a lot of impact that
Yes,
last. People remember them more if they've got like a quirkiness to them or whatever it might be. They stand out, you know.
absolutely. And that character, that figure behind Winkies, is, I think, what the story is about. It's about that frightening figure that lurks behind all of us, you know, the shadow, I guess the Jungian shadow, perhaps you might describe it as. But I think Lynch draws attention to that film very, very cleverly, in that it's not, I think it's one of the only scenes that is not part of an overarching narrative. You know, though we see the character of the character who recounts the dream, we see him again in Winkies. But all of the other scenes are part of a story. It's either part of Betty and Rita searching for Rita's identity, or the hitman, you know, trying to find Rita, you know, or these people pulling the strings over Adam's production. Is it the Sylvia North story? And this, you know, the corruption about getting this young actress in. All the other scenes are part of something that is telling a story. And then there's this one scene. It has no narrative other than that scene. And that's, again, why I think it's the most important thing, because it's just there, and it's drawing attention to itself in that way and saying, this is the fear that we have about going into our dream world, going into our unconscious and seeing what's behind the facade. And what's behind the facade is terrifying. And it's the face of ourselves that we don't want to see, the face of ourselves that we pretend isn't there. And it's the one that holds our guilt and holds our, you know, deepest, darkest secrets. And that's for me is what that character, did you say the bum behind Winkies, what that character is. Obviously that's my interpretation. I have no idea what was in Lynch's mind, and I have no idea whether or not that would have been in the series if it had been.
Yes, that's another thing. Would there have been more backstory to that character, maybe?
Would he have been there at all?
Or it could have been, cut out completely. Who knows? Maybe that scene would have been edited out or anything. I don't know, because it doesn't really change things too much had it been removed.
And it's incongruous with the rest of the plot. So it seems in that scene, it's basically a character saying, "This is a dream. We're talking about dreams." It's a character saying, "I'm having terrifying dreams, and I think they're real. I've come to this spot to see if my dreams are real." And that is basically one of the signposts that says this part of the narrative is a dream. We're going through someone's subconscious. So the curiosity in me wonders, if it had been a series rather than a feature film, would it have not been a dream? Would it have been more about this kind of corruption of Hollywood, the Hollywood dream, this plot about you know, instilling a unknown actress, you know, and forcing her into this film? And if so, would the dream element of it be relevant at all, or would that be a sort of a last episode sort of reveal? I don't know, but I'm very curious.
Who knows whether he would have had a very long gestation? You know, was he thinking of one series? Would he have been thinking 5 years ahead? Who knows? When would he want to wrap it up? I think even with Twin Peaks, apparently he didn't ever want to reveal who the killer was of Laura Palmer. It was apparently forced on him by the TV company execs.
Yeah,
he said that spoiled a lot of it for the fact that we revealed who did it. He just wanted it always to be a mystery.
Yeah,
the other characters to have their sort of dark side and explore them more, but always have the ghost of Laura in the background overlooking everything, you know. So yeah, I suppose in a sense probably Mulholland Drive would have been his second kind of attempt at that, maybe. You know, to do an ongoing story, not reveal too much. Maybe. I don't, but it never happened, so who knows. Right, I want to know now. Let's go through some sort of moments here, sort of thing. I've got three different ones down here, but start with everyone you want, Jen. We'll go through them. What's your funny moments of this film? You can call it funny, light-hearted moments in the movie. There aren't many, but I mean, it's more surrealist comedy as usual. But you know,
I think it's some of the elements we've already discussed, actually. So the kind of sheer absurdity of the assassination scenes,
yeah,
you know, the woman getting hit with a bullet, thinking she's been bitten by something, and then and then there's the janitor is there, and he pulls it, and when he shoots the janitor, is it a vacuum cleaner or some sort of floor cleaner starts going off, and he's doing a oh man thing. It's and then all the alarms start going off, and he has to,
and the water sprinkler goes
yeah,
off.
it's just bonkers. I think that I do really enjoy the levity in that scene. I think it provides a nice respite from some of the some of the sinister vibes that have been going until that point, but yet it doesn't dispel the sinister vibes, because this guy's a hitman, and he's up to something that's relevant to the story. But still, it's quite funny. So yeah, that's I guess that would be my funny moment.
I think the one, I love that one, but one other one I can think of is the one where Adam Kesher goes back to his apartment and catches his partner in bed with Miley Cyrus's dad.
Oh, is that I don't know that, but yeah, she say to him, "Look what you've done now," or something. So she says something completely absurd to him.
Yeah, really, she wasn't very subtle, was she, at all?
But blaming instantly placing the blame on him. He's just walked in, she's in bed with another man, and it's his fault.
Why did you come back early?
Yeah.
But it's funny because he just goes out. He seems quite calm, doesn't he? He doesn't say anything. Walks back out and pours paint in their jewelry box or something.
And that's really that's, I know we're talking about humor right now, but I think the pouring of the paint is really symbolic, like in the color palette of the film, the way color is used, and there's that lurid pink, that he smothers the jewelry in, and it goes all over him and everything, and he's wearing black, if I remember correctly, and then he's covered in paint for the rest of this. He goes up to meet the cowboy covered in pink paint. And I think Lynch in the cinematography, I don't know if it was Lynch or the cinematographer who made the calls on it, but color is used really effectively. So maybe we can talk about that a bit later when we're not talking about humor, because I've digressed.
The one thing I haven't really got a theory on this, but Jen, you might be able to offer some insight. Who or what do you think is the cowboy?
Yeah. So
that's one of the hardest characters in the film for me to get a handle on.
Okay.
I've always struggled with what he's about.
Okay. So
is he pulling the string somehow? Is he? I'm not sure he's working for, or what really. He turns up and then disappears again.
I'll tell you what I think. But again, this is my interpretation. It is. I don't have an authority on this at all. So this is, you can just call this the ramblings of a crazy person, if you like. So if you think about, the scene with the party where Diane and Camilla have gone up, and it's Adam and Camilla announce their engagement.
Oh yes, yeah.
During that scene, assuming that scene is a flashback, so happens before the dream sequence, in the background, almost subliminally, somebody passes by wearing a cowboy hat. Now you don't see, I don't think you see the face very clearly. I don't know if it was the same actor who played that role, but you see someone walk past. I think it is the same actor, dressed in the same way, but you see someone, just a party guest dressed as a cowboy. And I think it's one of those kind of things that feeds into the sort of dream, the dream element. And the paranoia of the dream. So if you think about the Naomi Watts character, the real one, Diane, in that she feels she was cheated from having this main part. She really wanted it in the Sylvia North story. She didn't get it. Her friend Camilla got it, and on the set she fell in love with her, and then it all went horribly wrong. And the injustice, the feeling of injustice that goes with that, and how badly she wanted the role, and how terribly it turned out for her, and how awful she feels. Is that sense of injustice. And you've got these kind of unseen figures kind of manipulating the picture, and it's like, I went in, I did a fabulous audition, I should have got the part, why didn't I? Who are these people who are working against me? And that's why, in the sense of the dream, there is this constant feeling of paranoia, of these people with really scary connections, sitting in ominous rooms and giving out orders, shut everything down. This is the girl, this random unknown girl, and I think the cowboy kind of in the dream represents the absurdity of that kind of the villains of her feeling of rejection and that. So I don't know if he's pulling the strings or if he's having his strings pulled off. He's a puppet. He's a puppeteer or a puppet. That I don't know, but I don't think it matters. I think all we need to glean from it is that it's a symptom of paranoia, people working against the fair casting of this film. And that's my interpretation. Might be a bit out there.
I really can't. The thing is, I've never been able to put a theory together about him, really, or anything. He's just always kind of. He's a very interesting character for the moment he's on there. But I just can't quite get what his modus operandi is, or whatever.
I wonder if he is a representational film.
Like it says, if you're good, you'll see me 2 times, or something like I don't quite know what he's talking.
And how many more times do we see him after that?
We never see him meet him again.
Yes, we do.
He never.
Oh, we see him again though. We see him
briefly again. Yeah, right near very near the very end, isn't it? I think. Was it the bit where he says, "Wake up"?
Wake up, yeah.
Yeah. So I wonder how. That's kind of intriguing as well, even that. But
yeah, and we see him, and then we see him at the party. We see
which I didn't quite. I haven't noticed that. I'll have to watch that again to see that, because it's probably very quick, isn't it?
Yeah, and I don't want to misspeak because I can't remember if it is the same actor. I said I thought it was, but it might not be. But someone in a cowboy hat dressed as a cowboy.
It wouldn't surprise me if it was deliberate. Don't get me wrong, because that's so it's probably.
Oh, it would certainly have been deliberate. Yeah, certainly deliberate. But
yeah. What else do you want to touch upon, Jen? Anything in particular?
You've piqued my curiosity by asking about the cowboy. You've piqued my curiosity about the figure with the blue hair. There's a conversation to be had there about who is the figure with the blue hair, and what does in the Club Silencio, what does that figure represent?
The only thing I could come to I'm probably completely way off, but I likened it to that she's like a physical reminder of the blue key or the blue box.
The blue key, that's exactly what I was thinking as well, because it's the same blue.
Maybe that's just like a subliminal thing that she's like that, and I don't know, but that's the only thing I could think of.
No, that's exactly what I thought. And again, it might be out there, and obviously we don't know. But if the key represents the guilt and the box represents the guilt, the blue hair is almost like the guilt presiding over.
Yeah.
Those.
She's in the top box looking down, isn't she? And that's
and that scene at Club Silencio, it's like the merging of selves at that point. So you've got Naomi Watson wearing red, which up until that point has been not Camilla, Rita's color. So she's always wearing red, whether it's red clothes, red towel, red robe, red lipstick, and up until this point, Naomi Watts has predominantly worn pastel, like pinks and pastel blues. But in that scene, she's wearing reds, Rita's wearing black and has a blonde wig on.
That's right.
The singer on stage is wearing the same shade of red and black and has got red makeup on.
Yeah.
So there is something about the selves merging, and you see it, I think, in a shot when they're in beds. I think it's a really clever sort of dirty two shot where you've got Rita lying on her back looking up, and you can see Naomi Watts on her side, and it looks like their two faces are one face. So
Yes.
like, I can't quite do it, but one is just in front, so they're like that. So it looks like they're one face. And with that, and that scene with the woman singing about the song in Spanish about tears, I believe.
It's called Crying.
And that's when, and then Naomi Watts reaches into her bag and she pulls out the blue box, and it's like, oh, we've just discovered the box. It's just, we've had it all along with us. It's like, I've been carrying this with me, this box of guilt, and the blue figure is presiding over that. So I think it's very visually symbolic, that scene.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. How about your feelings on? Is there any particular things when you watch it back then that stands out to you in the way that Lynch directs the film? What do you like about his visual style?
Very much. Yeah. He's visually quirky as a filmmaker. Everything is very precise and stylized. So the thing, I guess, that had a bit of a Blue Velvet feel to it is the scenes with the I don't know what the character's name is. I'm sorry, forgive me, but is he sitting in a wheelchair, or is but he's in a room on his own, and there's a glass panel, and other people are standing on the other side of the glass, and they're communicating via sort of a sound system with him, and he's very still, but he's the one giving the orders, That scene to me is very visually evocative of some of the play in Blue Velvet scenes towards the end, with the chap who's been shot still standing and slightly.
Oh yeah, that was very impactful, wasn't it?
Yeah, and then there's simple things as well, like the extreme close-ups on the eyes, which I believe we see in The Elephant Man as well. The photograph of the mother, and yeah, I think Lynch has got such a unique and vibrant style in the way he shoots and the way he compiles visuals, and there's a stillness as well to a lot of those works as well. So we're just allowed to look at what's on the screen and take in its weirdness. Yeah.
There's not too many. It's not fast cutting. He's not that kind of director. Gives you time to look at a scene. Sometimes for an unhealthy period of time, he actually can push it a bit too fast sometimes,
And that creates that sense of unease.
I'm feeling uncomfortable, but I think that's what he wants,
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Why are we just looking at that? Why is he just focused on that for so long? It's becoming painful now.
Yeah, because there's nothing odd that you're looking at. You're not looking at anything strange. You're looking at people, you're looking at rooms, you're looking at spaces. There's not like a kind of weird monster in the corner or anything like that. There's nothing intrinsically strange about what you're looking at. What's strange is the vibe that goes with the framing of the shots and the stillness of the characters in the shots, and how long, as you say, how long he lingers in that one shot, until we are feeling very uneasy and thinking, what's happening? I'm starting to feel dirty and itchy.
Jump out or something, or what? Where's this taking us? often there's, and sometimes those scenes can just be like, as you say, just a vacuum. They don't actually move the next scene along or anything. They're just a thing within it, like the bum behind Winkies, for instance, or something like that. But those little things stand out an awful lot.
Yeah, and they
Those
add
kind
to
of
the
scenes.
atmosphere. It's atmospheric. That guy in the room, I don't know what's happening in that, other than the fact that he is obviously someone extremely powerful, so powerful he has to be kept behind glass or something. I mean, I really don't know. It's just that kind of combination of different strange things. And yes, in a way, it doesn't move the story along, but what it does propel forward is that sense of paranoia, and that sense of unease and mystery and intrigue, but also that insidious dread. It's not horror, it's insidious dread, I think.
I agree. What about the use of sound and music on this film? That plays a huge part of it, really. You've got a lot of the 50s music or 60s kind of doo-wop music going on. The 16 reasons why I love him, or something, wherever it was, things like that.
Yes, you've got those, but you've got the score as well, this kind of synth score, synthesized, which, when I think of Mulholland Drive, it's not the 50s music that kind of jumps out, or even the jitterbug music at the beginning. It's that
dark theme,
car driving through Mulholland Drive. We're just shifting chords. It's very, very effective.
That was the composer of that was Angelo Badalamenti,
right?
And he has worked with Lynch probably more than any other composer. To be honest, they've had a very long working relationship together since Blue Velvet. Funny enough. So, and then into Twin Peaks, and then into several other movies as well, including this one.
Who scored The Elephant Man?
Oh, actually,
was that someone different, or was that him as well?
No, that wasn't him. No, it wasn't John Williams, was it? Did The Elephant Man? No.
I'm just going to consult IMDb.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure.
I feel like I should know it.
I imagine it was quite a popular composer back then, but
John Morris.
I don't know what other work he did, but
I'm just looking.
Yeah.
Sorry, this silence is fun for your listeners.
Yes. I'll just go and say a few jokes then.
Yeah, there's not actually. He's got a big repertoire, but it's not Dirty Dancing.
Oh, that's completely different.
Yeah. There's a lot on here that I don't know, that I don't recognise.
He's not someone I'm familiar with, I must admit.
Anywho.
Yeah. But anyway, that's the guy that,
Yeah, sorry, completely digress there.
In this case, it was Angelo who was saying he did a bloody good job of it, I thought. They work very well together, and he gets it, if you know what I mean. It always seems to get what Lynch is trying to evoke. And that's why they've had such a long relationship, because they just connected. When he was explaining something to him, often what would happen was Lynch would sit with Angelo in his apartment or something. Angelo would sit at the piano, and Lynch would try and describe a feeling or a mood he wants. But he's not a musician, so he only can describe it in words to him in very kind of unusual ways. I want to hear a wind, a slow wind, through trees, and all this sort of thing. And so Angelo's on the piano trying to, like, what would that sound like? So he did this sort of like dark mood, like lower key, doom, 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 like just very moody. Then he's building up, and it was just wonderful how they collaborate, you know.
Mm. And it
I
is
love
really good, isn't it, when there's a working relationship and you just get, especially when you're doing something like Lynch is, I would say, probably on the fringes of mainstream. So there's a lot of mainstream audiences probably would not enjoy his work to the same extent that nerds like you and me do. But if when you get it, you get it. And if you've got a collaborator who gets your work, then that's precious, precious, precious stuff, isn't it?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. So any moments you want to bring up that you got on your list there, Jane, that you want to, we might not have covered?
Shall I consult my list?
Yes, please.
So this is not anything exciting in my list. It's mostly quotes. It's mostly quote. Yeah, I think I've. Actually having trouble discerning my notes.
I wrote mine down. I'm having trouble reading mine. But,
I mean, I've put the word.
We've covered what I've written down basically anyway. So it's just whatever you want to throw in the mix now, Cam. Really,
I've got the words wish fulfillment written down on my in my notes. So I think we've touched on it, but maybe not as thoroughly as we could potentially. So there's a big element of wish fulfillment in the dream sequences. You know, the bonding between the two women, the love, them coming together in a form of love, and Rita being so vulnerable and so needy and being completely dependent on Diane, of course, is a projection of what. Yes. No, not Diane, Betty. Sorry, Betty is the projection of what Diane wishes she could be.
That's right. Yeah, Betty. Yeah.
And or just to be someone else. You know, what's the line? It's just like in the movies, we'll pretend to be someone else. You know. Exactly. And you've got. I think we catch a glimpse of Diane actually in the audition scene. You know, when she's got that old school Hollywood orange actor with the white hair and 3 times her age or whatever, and you know, such a traditional kind of Hollywood feel about it. You know, the sort of ridiculously young woman paired off with a much older man. And anyway, I think we catch a glimpse of her real self in that scene when she says, "I hate you, I hate us both." And we see her face change, Naomi, and this is what's so nuanced about her performance, is we see a change in the shape and her face and just the way her features work together, and it's very evocative of the way she presents the character of Diane later. And yeah, so the wish fulfillment, where actually she is this naive, childlike figure, full of joy and full of hope and full of excitement, and she's wearing pink, and she's got this pink cardigan on that's too small for her because you can see the buttons are pulling tight, and there's just this innocence and about how she is, and then that contrast with a true self, which is someone who's much darker, much more damaged and ruined by the Hollywood dream. So yeah, wish fulfillment, wish of who I could be and who would need me, and the role I would play in other people's lives, and actually as well, because she goes for the audition, doesn't she? She does an amazing job, but then the casting directors take her to meet Adam on this casting of this rigged casting, and Adam's been told to say, when he sees the Camilla Rhodes girl, to say this is the girl, that he wants. But then there's this wonderful moment where he turns and he looks over his shoulder, and Naomi Watts is standing there, and they have this connection where they're just fixated on each other. And even though there's no dialogue, there's no words, all we can see him thinking, this is the girl. And then she looks at her watch and she's like, I've got to go. I'm going to go and do the right thing. I'm going to go and be a good person and help my friend, rather than exploit whatever opportunity is about to happen for me now. So there's an element there about wishing her motives and her priorities were a little bit deeper and a little bit more altruistic than the sort of selfish self-promotion of the Hollywood dream, I guess.
Yeah, I like that.
So I had that on my list. And the other thing I've got on my list is the color red.
Yes, which, as you say, is recurring.
It is recurring, but it builds as well. And there is things. Red is used very symbolically in the sort of the lights, the neon red. You've got the neon red, but also you've got the the how Rita is dressed and presented with the red lipstick, and you've got the red blood, you've got red bed sheets, you've got a red door in the hotel, you've got red on the walls, but then in Aunt Ruth's apartment, obviously she's got red hair, which is obviously cool, but she's there's no red in her apartment. Everything's sort of muted browns, and then there's some red peppers sitting in a bowl when Betty's walking through, and there's just kind of a little flash of red, and then she meets Rita, and then red starts to be introduced. So you've got the red lipstick, and then Rita puts on a red towel, and then there's increasing exposure to the color red in that environment. And I find that really, really interesting, and I ask myself, what does red represent in this setting, and what do we glean from that? Because obviously that's the kind of thing that we perceive on the whole subconsciously when we're watching a film like this. So yeah, I find that very interesting.
It's not the first time he's done that in his work either. He's had recurring colours in other things as well.
And obviously he does it in this one as well with the blue.
Yeah,
what does blue
as well.
Blue potentially represents.
There was a lot of red when Twin Peaks came back in 2017. I had a long gap, 25 years or so. There was a lot of red in that. There was red balloons kind of in the background. There was red curtains. There was red this. There was red that, and red cars. It popped up. Doors, as you say. It was a real prominent color in that narrative. So it's interesting that he seems to be, for whatever reason, quite attracted to the use of certain color palettes.
Yes.
Red or blue or whatever, or that kind of thing. Yeah, which I think some directors are. It's just maybe it's just a visually striking color, I suppose.
It is, and you can use it very effectively, because he uses it really well with the lights. That when you look down on LA from Mulholland Drive and everything's dark, but you've got these lights. It's just glittering with lights, but the reds really stand out in those shots. And I've got in my head as well that one of the final closing shots of the kind of cityscape, the reds are very prominent. I wouldn't quote that. I wouldn't be completely convinced of that, because I'm working from memory now. But it's interesting as well, because we talk about the color palettes, but then we look at the Elephant Man, which was or Eraserhead, shot in black and white. And
so it's more the use of light and shadow, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah, which works beautifully, by the way. I mean, the whatever they used for the I don't know what the kind of film stock would have been for the Elephant Man, but it's so beautiful when you look at it. It's so beautiful. Amazing piece of work that. Maybe we'll come back and talk about that at some time.
Oh, we should, Frank. We should, because the Elephant Man.
It's a completely different film to Mulholland Drive. They couldn't be further from the truth. But then again, it does use some dream things as well. There's dream sequences in the Elephant Man as well.
Yeah, it's got a wonderful surreal sequences, as well as having a real gritty realism to it as well.
Crime and Victorian world and stuff. Smog and and all that. It's very evocative, isn't it?
Yeah, industry.
I mean, I'd love to talk about it with you if you want to at some point.
Yeah, I'm definitely up for that. I love a, you know me, I love a chat about a film.
But if there's anything else you want to think of, because I think we've covered pretty much everything, Jen. I've got everything that I've had on here. We have anyway.
I mean, no, I haven't got anything else on my list other than. I mean, I have got notes on my list, but I have no idea what they mean.
Well, that's helpful then.
I've got 12 to 17 mixed up on my list. What's that all about?
Well, your guess is as good as mine there.
Well, my guess should be fairly good because I wrote that. I don't know what I was thinking. I think, oh yes, there is one other thing that I really, really loved, and having been an actor in the past, this is something that I really enjoyed and really related to. When she goes into her audition, actually I should have said this is my favorite funny bit, when she goes into her audition and she's given some direction by the director who's sitting there, and he looks really vague. He looks like he doesn't really know what day it is. He's kind of squinting a little bit and looking a bit confused, but he gives her this direction and it just makes absolutely no sense. He's like, with themselves, don't let it be real until it's real, or something completely like. And I've heard directors talk like that, and you just go, okay then, and she just goes, okay, and I guess for me it just kind of shines a light in this again, this Hollywood world where there's so much glitz and glamour and aspirations and dreams and corruption, and so many people who just don't have a clue what they're doing. I guess it's I mean that's maybe unfair of me to say, but
it does happen.
Yeah, it does happen.
Yeah.
And so, you know, a creative work is only as good as the collaboration.
Sure.
So when you put a film together, you know, it's not one person who makes that film a success. It is everyone being on point, everyone being on top of their game at that exact moment. And you know, something as simple as costume design can make or break a production that's otherwise good. So it's I just found that amusing. I just found it amusing that the director was so vague and so unhelpful to the actors in that moment.
That was good, actually. Yeah. Then it got incredibly intense later on, that scene. You know, it was like.
But through no help of the director. You know, that was entirely driven by her as an actress. And you know, Woody the actor, he you know, he kind of said right at the beginning, if I'm a bad actor in this scene, it's not my fault, it's her fault. You know, he's not taking any responsibility for the quality of his performance. So you know, it all hinges on her in that moment, and she's the one who makes that scene happen, and she's the one who makes that scene brilliant and superb and meaningful. The director's just like sitting there going, yeah, it was all right. Well, everyone else is like, wow, that was the best thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
I just found that tickled me. That really did. But anyway,
it was good. It was very well played. That actually, yeah.
Fantastic. I think we should probably comment on the quality of the performances.
Sure.
I know we talked about Naomi Watts and other principals.
Laura Elena Herring as well as Rita.
Yeah, but everyone.
We see more or less after the initial opening sequence. We focus on her for quite a while before we really see that much of Naomi. You know?
For a while.
It's her in the car. It's her stumbling into the house and all the rest of it. You know.
We think it's her story to start off with, and maybe as a projection of Diane's subconscious. Maybe it is.
Hence maybe why she has the blonde wig later on. I don't know.
It's self. It's elements of self. Actually there is one thing that's really interesting about that. There's a moment of flip. There's a there's a moment where the 360-degree rule is broken, or sorry, the 180-degree rule is broken. And it's in the scene when Diane is in her apartment, the one that she swapped with her neighbor. And she looks and she sees Camilla and she says, Camilla, you came back. And she looks, you know, we stay on her for a long time. And then suddenly it flips. Yeah. And she's standing on the other side. And it's almost like she's a mirror image of herself, or it's her standing. She was looking at herself, not looking at Camilla. And so it's really interesting, and it raised questions about, you know, dissociation and how you view yourself. But, you know, very, very rarely would the director take the camera onto the other side of the actor and show them from the mirrored angle, the opposite angle. Unless they're trying to make a very specific point. So that's a very, very interesting moment for me. I don't know exactly what it means, but to me, it's more indicative of the exploration of self, both internally and externally, as well as a thematic point. Yeah.
Well, I think if you have got no objection again, I think we're pretty much going to wrap this up.
Yeah. Thank you.
But I will say, although I haven't got it confirmed yet, I'm working on it. But there will be a follow-up to this discussion, because I'm going to be doing a little interview, hopefully, with John Neff. John Neff, many fans out there of Lynch will know who he is, because he's had a long association working with him. But John Neff worked on this film as a sound engineer, mixer, and everything like that. Worked on the soundtrack. Worked with Lynch on several songs on the soundtrack as well. Mixed it for 5.1, I think, for the DVD release or something. Mm-hmm. So he's had quite a big involvement with Lynch, and worked in Lynch's studio for several years, working on various film mixing or working on music collaborations and things like that. So he has an incredible insight into, he's got a great memory, and he has great insights into his time working. So he can pretty much fill you in all the technical aspects that we haven't covered here and all that. Yeah. If you're into that kind of thing. So that's what I'll be doing next. So that would be almost like a sort of part 2 to this, if you like. So that will follow this. Then maybe later on after that, hopefully we might do the Elephant Man. Yeah.
I'd love that.
Yeah, I think we should.
And thank you so much for having me.
It's been great having you, Jen, and I haven't seen you for so long. It's lovely to catch up with you anyway as well.
You too.
And it's been too long, actually. So let's hope we can do this soon again.
Yes.
And thank you guys, obviously, for watching this. I hope you're watching it when it comes out. And we are very grateful. Please stay safe and be well. Okay. Thank you, Jen. And all of you there, guys, take care. Thank you.
Thanks, Frank.
Thank you.